This is the 5-minute guide to the unbuilt Iowa-class battleships of the United States Navy.
Don't worry, I haven't forgotten my promise to cover the various Iowa-class ships, so in this video we're going to take a quick look at the two that never were, the Illinois and the Kentucky. Originally, 4 Iowa-class had been ordered to be followed by the Montana-class, therefore BB-65 and BB-66 were originally intended to be the first and second ships of the Montana-class of battleships. But the new battleships, with more guns and armor and greater displacement than any previous American ship, would have experienced a longer build time than simply repeating a smaller design in the shipyards, which already had some familiarity with this design. So in June 1940, both hulls were reordered as Iowa-class units to save time on construction. However, it soon became clear that even under this accelerated program, the ships would likely not be ready for service before the war ended, and a variety of plans were made to try and put the hulls to alternate uses. Illinois was laid down on the 6th of September 1942, however work was soon suspended pending a decision as to whether to convert the hull into an aircraft carrier. Unfortunately, with the Essex class being completed in such numbers and with more of them on the slipways, a serious look at the proposal was undertaken and it was determined that the resulting carrier would cost more and be less capable than building a carrier of similar displacement from scratch. With what would eventually become the Midway class percolating through the design stages at this time, it was therefore decided that construction as a battleship should be resumed. The ship had a number of advances in design. From the Missouri onwards, the frontal bulkhead armor had been increased, but from Illinois onwards, the design was supposed to be all welded in construction, which saved weight and increased strength compared to the combination of rivets and welding used on the previous Iowa-class ships. The engineers also took the chance to revise the torpedo protection system, which addressed some of the design flaws and meant an estimated 20% improvement in torpedo protection. Incidentally, the battleship was partly funded by the sale of King Neptune, a pig auctioned across the state of Illinois as a fundraiser, somehow raising $19 million in war bonds. Ultimately, all these delays meant that she was only about 1/4 complete by the time Japan surrendered, and she was quickly cancelled. The incomplete hulk was initially retained in the belief it could be used as a target in nuclear weapons tests, but since $30 million would be needed to complete the ship enough to even launch her, and there were plenty of war prizes that you could use instead, this meant she remained in the dockyard until September 1958, when she was broken up. Kentucky was laid down on the 7th of March 1942, but work was suspended fairly soon after, as with the Illinois, to settle the argument of whether or not it was going to be an aircraft carrier. Work resumed in December 1944, but other suggestions were floated to convert her into a specialist anti-aircraft ship, so work was suspended again. She was eventually floated out in January 1950 to clear a dry dock for repairs to the Missouri, which had managed to run aground. Even newer bright ideas were proposed at this point to convert the Kentucky into a guided missile battleship, which saw her reclassified from BB-66 to BBG-1. Initially, this would have involved the installation of a pair of twin-arm launchers for the RIM-2 Terrier surface-to-air missile system on the stern of the ship, with various associated radars scattered over the rest of the ship. Another guided missile concept presented included the installation of 1 or 2 launchers for 8 Regulus II or SSMN-2 Triton nuclear cruise missiles, somewhat like the Kirov design, only 50 years earlier. The guided missile battleship project was authorized in 1954, with conversion due to be complete in 1956. However, the project was cancelled, with the conversion ideas transferred to partial conversions of 2 Baltimore-class heavy cruisers into the Boston-class guided missile cruisers. They proved only partially successful in their new role, as the pace of change in cruise missile technology rendered their new weapon systems obsolete pretty quickly, whilst their remaining heavy guns proved in demand for fire support in both the Korean and Vietnam Wars. Another conversion project in early 1956 called for the installation of, believe it or not, 2 Polaris nuclear ballistic missile launchers with the capacity for 16 weapons. This would have been accompanied by 4 RIM-8 Talos SAM launchers with 80 missiles per launcher, and 12 RIM-24 Tartar SAM launchers with 504 missiles. That would have been an awful lot of missiles. This projected the ship being completed in July 1961, but the cost of the conversion, probably all the missiles, ultimately forced the Navy to abandon the project. So all these schemes came to nothing and the ship ended up being used as a parts hulk. In 1956, her bow was removed and shipped in one piece across Hampton Roads and grafted onto the Wisconsin, which had managed to collide with the destroyer Eaton earlier in the year. In 1958, the engines were stripped out and installed on the Sacramento-class fast combat support ships Sacramento, unsurprisingly, and Camden. Ultimately, what remained of the Hulk was sold for scrap on the 31st of October 1958.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below.